And yet, I believe that if one man were to live out his life fully and completely, were to give form to every feeling, expression to every thought, reality to every dream, I believe the world would gain such a fresh impulse of joy that we would forget all of these maladies of medievalism and return again to the Hellenic ideal, or to something finer, richer than Hellenic ideal it may be. But the bravest man among us is afraid of himself. The mutilation of the savage has its tragic survival in the self-denial that mars our lives. We are punished for our refusals. Every impulse we strive to strangle broods in the mind and poisons us. The body sins just once and then it's had its sin, for action is a mode of purification. Nothing is left but the recollection of a pleasure or the luxury of a regret. Resist it and the soul grows sick with longing for what it's forbidden itself, with desire for what its monstrous laws have made monstrous and unlawful. You, Mr. Gray, you with your rose-red youth and your rose-white boyhood, you yourself have passions that make you afraid, thoughts that fill you with terror, daydreams and sleeping dreams that might stain your cheek with shame. Scene. Thank you very much, guys. That was a reprise. One of the first monologues I did here. I was working on a monologue today for about 4 hours, 3.5 hours, and it wasn't ready for tonight. But the greatest thing about monologues is you got them in your back pocket. So you know, you could do things like bust them out anytime you want. And you know what? I kind of want to bust out a second monologue here that I did 2 weeks ago. So, bonus, this is going to be a second monologue. We did, the first one was Lord Henry Wotten from Oscar Wilde's The Picture of Dorian Gray. And now we're going to do a Quentin Taratino monologue, Captain Koons. You guys might remember this from Pulp Fiction. Hello, little man. Boy, I sure heard a bunch about you. See, I was a good friend of your dad's. We were in that Hanoi pit of hell together over 5 years. Hopefully you never have this experience yourself, but when two men are in a situation like me and your dad were for as long as we were, you take on certain responsibilities of the other. If it had been me who hadn't made it, right now, Major Coolidge would be talking to my son, Jim. But the way it turns out is I'm talking to you, Butch. I got something for you. This watch I got was first purchased by your great-grandfather during the First World War. It was bought in a little general store in Knoxville, Tennessee. It's made by the first company ever to make wristwatches. Up till then, people were still carrying pocket watches. It was bought by Private Doughboy Ernie Coolidge on the day he set sail for Paris. This was your great-grandfather's war watch, and he wore it every day he was in that war. When he had done his duty, he went home to your great-grandmother. He took off the watch, put it in an old coffee can, and in that can it stayed until your granddad, Dane Coolidge, was called upon by his country to go overseas and fight the Germans once again. This time they called it World War II. Your great-grandfather gave this watch to your granddad for luck. Fortunately, Dane's luck wasn't as good as his old man's. He was a Marine, and he was killed, along with the rest of the Marines, at the Battle of Wake Island. Your granddad was facing death. He knew it. None of those boys had any illusions of getting off that island alive, so 3 days before the Japanese took the island, he gave the watch to a gunner, an Air Force gunner, transport, a man named Wanaki. A man he'd never met before in his life. to deliver to his infant son, never seen before in the flesh, this watch. His dad's gold watch. 3 days later, your granddad was dead. But Winaki kept his promise. After the war, he paid a visit to your grandmother. And he delivered to your infant father his dad's gold watch. This watch. This watch was on your daddy's wrist when he was shot down over Hanoi. He was captured. He was put in a Vietnamese prison camp. He knew that if the Gooks saw the watch, it'd be confiscated, taken away. And the way he saw it, this watch was your birthright. He was going to be damned if he'd let some slopes put his greasy yellow hands on it. So he hid the watch. In the one place he knew he could hide something, his ass. He wore this watch up his ass 5 long years. He died of dysentery, gave me the watch. I hid this uncomfortable hunk of metal in my ass for 2 years. Then, after 7 years, sent me home to my family. Now, little man, I give the watch to you. Thank you, guys. That was a double dose. Those are some monologues I did the first weekend I was doing Jack Does a Monologue. Again, I do this every night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. I was working on a monologue for tonight, but it was such a great monologue. I did about 3.5 hours on it. And honestly, straight up, I want to work on it some more and present it tomorrow. So tune in tomorrow night for Jack Does a Monologue. And thanks for stopping by, guys. I hope to see you soon. If you guys have any suggestions for a monologue I could work on, I've got 1 or 2 in the queue. But list something in the comments. And I hope to see you soon. Take care.